Hello, everyone. I apologize for the preponderance of images on this slide, but I think they'll be helpful in explaining environmental factors with regard to material choice. A lot of the time, in fact, hopefully, as we progress more and more into the realms of renewables and sustainable material choices, companies will become more conscious of the choices they make of materials based on the environmental impact of them. Now, we are obviously currently, and I say we as in humanity, we are consuming materials at a faster rate than we can actually supply them. Now, this is a problem. Especially loads of materials are non-renewable. In fact, I would argue pretty much all metals are non-renewable, all plastics are non-renewable. The only ones that are renewable are timbers, really. And the reason being is because trees can grow. They're living beings. They're living organisms that will hopefully, as long as we keep the plants in good shape, they will keep growing. Now, let's just dig into this a little bit more because I don't want to confuse you too much on this. Now, there are reasons why people or companies will choose a certain material for its environmental factors. Now, companies like Coca-Cola might say that they're using aluminium drink cans because they are good for the environment, because aluminium can be recycled really easily. Now, sure, fair point. Yes, aluminium can be recycled, not easily recycled, but it can be recycled. Metals are, well, in fact, yeah, the energy used to recycle pretty much any material is quite high. But the good thing with metals and recycling metals is metals can be recycled any number of times and they still maintain exactly the same mechanical and physical properties that they had when they were literally conceived, when they were extracted, every time that they are recycled. So aluminium for a drinks can has exactly the same material properties once it's been recycled as it did before. Plastics, however, don't. Plastics degrade. So when companies say, or when bottles say this is recyclable, it's so sure it is recyclable, but it probably can't be used for that function again. It'll be used for some very low grade applications. So that's the problem with recycling plastics. So yes, drinks cans, all fine. They are recyclable. Technically, they're good for the environment. But the trouble is with that is it relies on the consumer to actually do the recycling. It requires us to put them in recycling bins, not just to throw them away in regular garbage. Also, the inks that are used to print on there, that can cause problems as well because inks can be highly toxic. Now, let's just go on to the example of the glass bottle here. Now, glass is generally a much more superior material for storing liquids. It's much more hygienic, it's non-porous, and it's environmentally more friendly. It's actually easier to recycle as well. Okay, sure, there's a lot of heat involved in melting glass down, but glass, I mean, in countries around the world, you get what's called bottle banks, where literally they are just massive, like containers where you just go and throw your glass bottles in. They separate them out by color, but you just chuck in the glass bottles, you hear them go smash, and it's really satisfying to do. And then that they have to break them to grind the glass down into small granules. Then they can melt them more easily, and then they can mix it with new glass or whatever, and then they can create new bottles. So glass, yeah, is way more recyclable. Now, there's a big push in certain countries to get rid of plastic bottles completely for water, for example, and to only have, say, water dispensers. So it's encouraging people to carry a reusable around with them. So, manufacturers will make bottles from, say, reusable materials, which are more hygienic, such as glass, or this one here, which is from a company called Iron Flask, and they make bottles from stainless steel because stainless steel is far more hygienic, and it's much better than using a disposable plastic bottle. So problem is with like disposable plastic bottles is you also get, like, they're not very strong, not very durable, they don't last long, like they're not designed to be reused. You get all sorts of problems with like microplastics and things like that if you reuse them a lot. So it's much safer to have something much more durable like stainless steel. Now, a stainless steel bottle will last technically a lifetime if it's looked after. It doesn't rust. It's incredibly tough and strong and hard. You could drop it and it will barely dent. The only downside is it's a bit heavy, and it has a plastic cap here. Glass is great, but it's obviously a lot more fragile. It's very hard, very hygienic, but it will break and shatter. So that's why it's not really practical to carry around a glass bottle unless it's got some sort of protection around it. Okay, so then in terms of carrying on a discussion about water receptacles, wood is a nice idea for using as sort of liquid containers, but it's not great because wood is porous. It's made up of fibers, and water can get right into the fibers. And wood, obviously, when it's growing in a tree, is wet. We call it green timber. It has lots and lots of water in there, and to make it usable, we have to dry out the wood, get rid of that water. So this example here, the bamboo bottle, it's like that's great, and the message it gives is brilliant, but unfortunately it's not really that practical because bamboo is highly porous. It will, if it's not coated or treated, it will rot very quickly, and it will absorb the liquid that's in there very quickly, and as a result it's not hygienic, because if you put, say, orange juice in there, the sugars in the orange juice, or even worse, milk, all the bacteria will then get absorbed into the wood, and it will start growing and festering, and it's really not nice. The argument that could be made for bamboo is if you made, say, disposable bamboo water bottles, then the argument could be made to say, well, bamboo is, it's technically it's a grass, not a timber, so it grows incredibly quickly. So you could make bamboo bottles at a very, very high production rate and have them disposable, but on the basis that, number one, they're fully biodegradable. Number two, they don't pollute. Number three, the material grows very fast. So that's the argument that could be made, but they're not good for storing liquids long term. It's only good, like, sometimes if you go, when I've been trekking in Japan before, like, you walk by some like little water fountains in the mountains that's sort of like public drinking fountains. They're literally just natural springs, and sometimes they have like a little bamboo cup with a handle on them which people can drink from. And we're talking pre-COVID time here, guys. And those are often made from bamboo, but they work fine, but as long as they're not wet for any length of time, they need to be dried out, otherwise they go all gross. So you might be then wondering, why is there a picture of an iPhone on there? So there is a picture of an iPhone on there because designers have a responsibility to minimize the environmental impact of the products that they design. One way to do this is by reducing the number of materials that are in a product. Now, when I say materials, I mean anything, like going back to the drink can, that could be the ink that's used. That could be if there's different grades of aluminium used, like if they use a different grade of aluminium for the little ring pull at the top, or whatever, like they might have different materials that are used. Same with the water bottle here. They use a different material for the cap than the main body. That can create problems with recycling because you can't recycle plastics together. They have to be separated. And with the metal bottle here, this is all well and good, but what's the ink made from on the outside? And it's obviously got a plastic lid that will not last nearly as long as the metal body on there. So it'll be the plastic lid that will dictate the product's life cycle. So yes, with phones have a huge amount of materials and components inside, and this is a huge problem. It's causing massive waste. And Apple, they make their iPhones out of either aluminium or stainless steel, depending on whether you buy the Pro or the regular one. And they'll say with this, they'll say, oh, that this, it's all recyclable materials and stuff like that. And sure it is, but that's only a fraction of what the whole product actually is. Like, you look at the number of toxic materials that are inside an iPhone, like the lithium used in the battery, and there's loads of things like lead and mercury and stuff like that in them. It's really nasty stuff. So, and it's very hard to separate. That's why you can't just, or you shouldn't just throw away an electronic device. It has to have all its parts separated and removed and all that kind of thing. So it's a big issue when it comes to environmental factors with products. So it's down to designers to choose environmentally friendly products, materials, and consumers to choose products which they deem to be more sustainable. So like saying no to using disposable bottle and like carrying around a reusable one instead, and that kind of thing.